Welcome to all of our many guests who are attending, and I'm excited to welcome Chloe Moretz, and I'll get to her introduction here in just a moment. But for now, I just want to say I am Bill Murphy, and I am the civil engineer for ASP Enterprises, Quick Supply Company, Bowman Construction Supply, and Cascade Geosynthetics. And when you call us or refer to us, you don't have to say all four company names. You just use whatever name you're familiar with locally. And I've given Chloe the same leeway there. She doesn't have to say all four company names, but she likes a challenge, so she might do it at least once. But I want to go ahead and just do the quick intro that you're familiar with if you've been on our web series before. That I keep saying I'm going to update this, and I don't. I've done 20 some of these webinars over the last year and some weeks, and I have not updated that we've been in business for the 40 plus years is correct for several of our locations. And we do have over 12,000 customers, 30 sales professionals, a number of CPESCs, and we still only have one civil engineer, but we think one's plenty. That's me. And then we also have a map here, and these are not the only places we can help you, but these are our primary markets. So Quick Supply in Iowa, ASP across the Midwest, Bowman Construction Supply in the Rocky Mountains, and Cascade Geosynthetics out in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska. And today we're going to talk about one particular solution, which is a BMP. It's just an excellent solution for construction in all of those markets. But I just want you to be reminded that we do carry a whole lot of products, and we are experts at warehousing and logistics. And one of the things that people like about us is we can put together a custom truck, and we can deliver to the job site exactly what you need and when you need it. Just give us a call and give us a chance. So here's our local phone numbers. So again, whatever state you're in, just contact your local rep who you usually deal with. If you don't have somebody and you're new to us, contact me or contact any of these companies below, and we'll be happy to help you. And we sometimes share our efforts together, so we blur the lines between each other, but we respect our boundaries with our friends and neighbors. But like I say, we do actually service some projects that are outside of that mapped area. And we also carry products that may not show up on our website. And if you don't know about it, or if you don't know for sure if we carry it, just get a hold of us. And if you come across a really innovative solution, contact me. That's something I do on a daily basis. I'm constantly evaluating what's available in the construction market, and we have a new product committee, and I'm blessed to be a part of that. We are constantly vetting solutions to continue to find the best alternatives for our customers. So with that, I'm coming back to this opening slide for my friend Chloe, and she has a really awesome personality and a really neat, just a way with people. But when I read her bio, you're going to think that she doesn't have a lot of experience in construction, but that's not true. Her entire career has been in construction. And one of my favorite things about her is relationships. And that happens to be her title. Chloe Moretz is relationship manager with FODS. In her role, Chloe works as a support liaison to engineers, specifiers, and governing bodies in regards to the FODS system. Additionally, Chloe serves in a business development role, supporting FODS customer relations. Chloe's worked in the construction field for the duration of her career, as I mentioned, and she truly enjoys the innovative, hardworking industry. When she's not talking about trying to keep dirt from leaving job sites, you can find her enjoying her hobbies: skiing, hiking, running, keeping her kid alive, and talking too much. We might be related. So with that, welcome, Chloe.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, Bill. And I really appreciate, you guys taking some time to facilitate this webinar. And thank you to each and every one of you who have joined today. I really also appreciate you guys doing that. I know, it's a busy time of year with springtime. So thank you so much for, prioritizing this. It does mean a lot. And we do really value our relationship with ASP, Bowman, Cascade, and Quick Supply.
Nailed it.
Said all four. He told me yesterday, he's like, you don't have to say all four. I'm like, that means I'm going to say all four. So I love a little challenge. But yeah, we're really grateful for this opportunity to interact with you guys. And yeah, please send questions as we go through, and look forward to answering those at the end. So a quick little bit of background information about us. So we are based out here in the Denver, Colorado area. And our company founders were contractors themselves who really just saw a need for a better construction entrance. So they developed FODS as that solution. And a question that we get all the time is, where did the name FODS come from? So like I said, our founders were contractors, but they were also pilots as well, or they are also pilots as well. So FODS is actually an aviation derived term and stands for Foreign Object Debris System. So all of our product is sourced and manufactured here in the USA. Our factory is actually down in Florida in the Cocoa Beach, Orlando area. And it's made of completely recyclable material and about 10 to 20% recycled material. And that's a number we're constantly trying to increase, as sustainability is very important to us as a company. And we do work through a nationwide distribution network. So companies like ASP are stocking distributors. So the mats are all over the US in stock, very accessible to contractors. It's not some kind of unicorn product that's going to be hard for you guys to hunt down. So before we get too far, I do like to take just a couple of minutes to talk about what FODS are. So basically, FODS are just a composite trackout control system that are used as a substitute to that typical rock construction entrance that's required by the EPA, and I'm sure all of you have on all of your sites. FODS provide that site access, and they also just really greatly work to reduce the amount of mud that's tracked off site by construction traffic. So not only are they ensuring that environmental compliance, but they also really do work to minimize liability as well. The system is extremely easy to install, remove, and relocate, and it is reusable. It has a life of about 10 to 12 plus years, so very durable. So as you can see here in these photos, especially the one down there on the left-hand corner, the top surface of each mat is a geometric pattern that's formed in the shape of pyramids. So when a vehicle drives over the mats, the tires are deformed, obviously without causing any damage to them, and debris and sediment or come out of the treads of those tires and fall to the base of the mat. The tires are then cleaned so that vehicle can leave the site without transporting mud or other contaminants. Now, if we have any specifiers or engineers on this call, it's pretty self-explanatory, but FODS are typically spec'd on the stormwater pollution prevention plan or erosion control detail or something like that. So some quick technical details on the system as well. So it is a modular system. So each mat is 12 feet wide and 7 feet in the direction of travel. The direction of travel does matter. That's the direction the pyramids are staggered in to really open up those tire treads. And so basically you can connect together the mats to create whatever type of configuration works best for your specific site. And we do have a bunch of layout drawings on our website, and I'm also happy to provide those to you guys in an email as well. Just let me know in that feedback or chat box or whatever, and we'll get those to you guys. Now, the pyramids on top of the mat are just shy of 3 inches tall, and the mats themselves weigh 430 pounds. That sounds kind of heavy, but in reality, the bottom surface of the mat, it's a very durable HDPE plastic, is pretty smooth. So they can be dragged into place without any equipment. So after they're offloaded from a truck, 2 people can install the system without having to coordinate, equipment being on site or bringing it from another part of the site, etc. Now, I've even done it before. So that's what I tell the guys in the field when they start to complain, like, oh, that's 430 pounds, that's so heavy. I'm like, hey, I'm not known for my feats of strength, and I can do it, so you can do it, so be quiet. So very easy to install. And as we mentioned before, they're designed for a long lifespan, over a decade of use. And another benefit of the system that I really think is very neat is that they can be installed on any substrate. So if you guys ever have a project that requires a construction entrance over top of pre-existing concrete or asphalt, FODS are an excellent solution for that. You can just lay the mats right down on top of that substrate, anchor them down, and they actually really work to protect the surface from all that construction traffic entering and exiting the site throughout the duration. And it's much simpler and more cost effective than the alternative, which can be, it can entail peeling up layers of asphalt, putting down rock, removing the rock, bringing it to the landfill, repaving the area. So definitely a great solution to keep in mind, for all projects, but especially for any projects where you've got some pre-existing hardscape in place. The system is easy to clean and maintain, and we will talk about cleaning, installation, and maintenance a little bit further on in the presentation. So here is a 3D image of like a rendering of the mats. It just gives you all a good idea of what they look like. So we recently did get some feedback from several different industries, and we did release a new prototype of our mat. So basically, it's just a couple of slight changes. And if you've ever seen them out in the field before, you'll notice these changes. But essentially, the first few rows of pyramids are staggered in a ramp design just to allow all vehicles, including those passenger vehicles, to drive onto them easier. Additionally, we have found that once they're all connected together, this new design really does increase the effectiveness of removing debris and sediment just through greater vehicle vibration and tire deformation as well. So just a quick little update right there. Now, of course, we've had FODS tested by several third-party engineers, one of which was a company called CTL Thompson. They're a materials engineer, and they did various evaluations to determine the strength of the mets. Basically, what they found is they really cannot max out from a weight perspective. So just to go into that a little bit further, each pyramid has a crush rating of over 20,000 pounds. Even your smallest passenger vehicle, let's say like a Prius, something like that, that pyramid's going to be dispersed. That tire is going to be dispersed over at least 4 pyramids, while, a larger vehicle more common to a construction site, that tire is going to be dispersed over at least 8 pyramids. So truly can't max out from a weight perspective. During the testing, they also found that FODS can handle over 1 million vehicle passes of an 80,000 pound vehicle before showing any wear or tear, which really does prove their long life and durability. Another thing I do like to quickly mention as well is the mats do have a 15-year UV inhibitor added into the plastic as well. So that just prevents them from ever being broken down by the sun throughout their lifespan. On the flip side, we get some questions as well about cold, and I know we've got some cold areas of the US on this call, and you don't have to worry about them becoming brittle from the cold or cracking or anything like that either. Not a concern. So I'm going to show you guys a really quick video here that I just think does a good job demonstrating the durability of the system. So this was taken at a project down in Arizona, actually. It's a very large, heavy civil project down there called Connect 202. And basically what you guys are seeing here on this video is that before the job site was opened, vehicles had started to line up for about 30 minutes just waiting to enter the site. So naturally, once they were allowed on, it was just a steady stream of traffic driving over the mats. So this particular video here shows almost 2 million pounds driving over the system in just 60 seconds. You can see that the structural integrity isn't compromised at all. The pyramids are still upright. So they really can handle a lot of use and just abuse from a weight perspective, and just a lot of trucks driving over them every single day. Also, I have a 4-year-old son, and he loves this video. And I brought him to work with me the other day though. And he was like, "Hey mom, where are all the trucks?" And he was like, "We're just in an office. This is super lame." He felt really catfished that that's not actually where my job was.
That is awesome.
He's like, "What the heck?" Here are just a couple of companies, we have worked with in the past or are currently working with now through our partners like ASP, just some of the biggest players in the industry, ranging from civil engineers to construction companies to DOTs. They're all utilizing FODS. And we really do think that that fact alone does demonstrate that there's just a huge need out there for a better construction entrance. And I'm sure many of you all can attest to that as well. So I'm going to quickly talk about the Colorado DOT spec just because it's a good example of the effectiveness of the system. So this picture right here is the general rock construction entrance specification for Colorado. Now I know this differs a bit from state to state, and usually, the length ranges from anywhere from 50 feet to 100 feet. I think our partners out there on the Cascade side, I think it's about 100 feet there, but most of the US, it's either 50 or 70 feet in length. Basic elements are all the same though, about 6 inches thick of rock, that 6 ounce, 8 ounce geotextile fabric underneath, 12 feet wide, etc. So that's the rock spec here in Colorado. Now, FODS were added to the CDOT approved products list a few years ago, and the department actually ended up changing the FODS spec after seeing them out in the field, just performing as well as they do. So they reduced that spec from 70 feet to 35 feet. So literally took it and cut it in half. And I just think this is a great testament to how much more efficient and effective FODS are than stone. And this has happened in many other states as well, where we are officially approved Typically that length is kind of cut in half. We usually see about 28 to 35 feet of travel, and that's our basic recommendation as well. You'll get really great results with that length, and you're getting in about 3.5 minimum tire rotations there. So that's another thing I do like to point out to both contractors and specifiers. If you do decide to use FODS on a project, you really don't need the same length as you would rock. So that can be, beneficial as well. If you're in a downtown project or something that's a little bit tighter on space, you can, clean off the tires even better than you would rock using less of a footprint. So that's just a quick overview of the system, some technical details there. Hopefully gives y'all just a good idea of the function of it and what exactly FODS do. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here now just to talk about some advantages we think it offers, as well as challenges that FODS overcome just with the traditional rock method. And I'm sure many of you guys are very, very familiar with what a traditional rock entrance looks like, but just in case, got some quick videos here. You can see that it's a pretty labor intensive process. There's a lot of equipment involved, a CDL driver bringing that rock on site, a guy aggressively pointing in the background. He makes me laugh. I want his job. But the big issue is that this process has to be repeated over and over again to refresh the entrance, make sure that it's still effectively, cleaning the mud off of tires. It's not necessarily easy or simple. Now, that kind of brings me to my first point here is rock is at its peak effectiveness when it's first installed. As soon as one vehicle drives over the entrance, it begins to flatten. And I'm sure as many of you guys have seen, the construction entrance can quickly just evolve into a cobblestone road with a few pieces of gravel floating on top. Especially this time of year, we've got a lot of rain and just thawing and stuff like that. It can turn into just a muddy mess really, really quickly. The other issue is that even if it is newly installed stone and it's cleaning the mud off of tires, any kind of dirt or debris that is cleaned off the tire is just laying there on top of the stone. So naturally, subsequent vehicles drive through that same mud, and before you know it, we're tracking it off site. Whereas in contrast with the FODS system, any type of debris or sediment that is cleaned off the tires just falls right down to the base of the mat. And tires stay on the top 1/2 to 1/4 inch of the pyramids, so they're not going to come into contact with that same sediment as long as, of course, FODS are kept clean, and we'll go into that a little bit later on. The system is literally good as new. And then, as we mentioned before, it can be placed on any substrate. You can see here in this picture, they just put it right down on top of the dirt, and it doesn't have to be perfectly flat either. Of course, you don't want to lay it on top of a big boulder or anything like that, but the system has a good amount of flex in the plastic, so it can kind of form to the surface that it's put down on top of. And then once it's removed, the plastic also has memory in it, so it'll return to its original flat shape within just a short amount of time as well. The next, advantage as well is just when you consider that environmental cost piece. Like I just talked about, traditional rock entrance requires a lot of additional trucks to be brought in, truckloads of gravel to be brought in to refresh the entrance, make sure that it's still effective. And then at the end of the project, all of that stone is considered contaminated, and all that geofabric and rock has to be removed and brought to a landfill to be disposed of. And that's a huge amount of environmental impact over time, not to mention a pretty labor-intensive process to just repeat on every single project that you all have. And then, of course, there's just that piece as well that since they're not super effective, they do often equal stormwater violations or EPA fines. And actually, there was an engineering firm in Wisconsin, they're called R.A. Smith, and they had this really neat software that looked at SWIP violations, and they looked at 1 million different stormwater violations. And they found that out of those 1 million violations, 75% of them stemmed from the construction entrance. So truly it is just a traditionally problematic spot. Kind of back to that environmental cost piece. This is a very conservative slide here based on some feedback that we have received from project managers and contractors and people who are out in the field all the time. And they said for your typical year-long project, for the initial install of your rock entrance, plus refreshing it every couple months, we're talking about 8 truckloads of gravel need to be brought on site. And then, of course, if 8 truckloads are brought in, we're going to have to remove at least that many, probably more because of sediment buildup. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll say 8 come in, 8 come out, 16 truckloads of gravel over the life of the project. Whereas in contrast, with FODS, you can bring onto site the 4 to 6 mats you need for your entrance on a flatbed or trailer, quickly install them. They require minimal maintenance over their lifespan. And then at the end of the project, they can just be picked up, brought to another site for years and years of continued use, and continue to use them for over a decade more. Now, finally, we understand the need for a construction entrance and why the EPA requires it to keep that sediment from exiting a job site. However, having rock as that final piece before leaving a site really does pose some challenges from a liability standpoint. Rocks can get dragged out into roadways, lodged in vehicle tires, and become like a projectile missile headed down the highway. And I'm not sure if any of you all work in the aviation space, but we have really seen a lot of success there because it's very problematic bringing rock onto those sites because it can turn into potentially harmful foreign object debris, FOD, on those runways or sensitive areas. And it's great to have a rockless method of maintaining that compliance really on any sensitive areas. Great option there. But really on all projects, the reusability of the mats does offer a large cost savings. But from a liability standpoint, those potential savings can be pretty enormous. And I do think it's really funny, we have a lot of gravel pits and quarries reach out to us about using mats there as vehicles exit their quarry to get rocks out of the tires. And clearly, there's a little bit of an issue with having gravel right there before they enters the roadway. Especially, another place that this is important is if you're in a downtown project or a project that's spilling into a busy roadway with cars flying by. Definitely great to get all those rocks out of the tires before they get on the road. Also, they do work to reduce dust as well. I'm not sure, this dust control is more of an issue in some parts of the country than others. If we have anyone on here from Colorado, here in Colorado, that is something that is closely monitored. Actually, Kiewit did use FODS on a really large project, a highway project, Central 70 here. And this was one of the reasons they decided to use the system is because they have dust control monitors up on their sites, and it really helped to mitigate that issue. And then, of course, the system is also very easy to pick up and move along the site since it's phased, just pick them up, move them down the lines. That's another reason why they decided to use them there. But I digress. So now I'm going to just talk about a couple of case studies here. Just some real life example of FODS in the field, as we say, a little cheesy, but gotta love the alliteration, right? So the first case study that I'm going to discuss with you guys is in Texas. So after Hurricane Harvey, Harris County, Texas undertook this massive project to reduce future flood risk. And this project is still ongoing down there. And essentially it just included a lot of excavation jobs. They were enlarging channels, creating huge stormwater retention basins, etc. And one of our distributors down there in Texas worked with a local contractor called Challenger Services, and they decided to use FODS as a new and innovative BMP for reducing trackout. And as part of this BMP test, inspectors from the Harris County Flood District recorded the performances and benefits of using FODS entrance versus another typical rock entrance they had on site as well. So this was really cool for us because we got about 20 pages of just unbiased third-party data through this daily monitoring that the flood control district performed. Like I said, it was about a 20-page report. If anyone would like to see that, please let me know. I'm happy to provide it. But some of their findings were that FODS reduced the roadway cleaning by 59%. So clearly they were doing a much better job than the stone at cleaning off the tires. They also only needed to be repaired once, and a repair consisted of just hammering down a stake that had come up a little bit, whereas the rock entrance required 9 truckloads of gravel to refresh it in just 56 days. So when I said that slide with all the trucks on it was conservative, this is what I'm talking about. In 56 days, they brought in an additional 9 loads of gravel to maintain the entrance. And actually what happened was after that 56 days, the contractor decided to just get rid of the stone, exit completely, and just use FODS for the rest of the project. So over the duration, FODS were on site for 122 days, And I believe it was, 20,354 to be exact, fully loaded trucks drove over the mats. They held up really well. And at the end of the project, they were just picked up, cleaned off, picked up, transported to another site for years and years of continued use. Harris County there in Texas has since added FODS as like their preferred BMP for reducing trackout. And I like this case study. First of all, I like the data. I'm a tiny bit of a nerd, not too much of a nerd, but a little bit. So I really like that third-party data, but then also it just proves how well the system holds up on those heavy civil projects. And then when it comes down to it, are a lot more effective than stone. You can see here too, it also greatly reduced the amount of street sweeping they had to perform per day. And that is something we hear quite frequently. I was actually just on the phone with a contractor in Las Vegas area, and he was telling me that he was building an elementary school. And as elementary schools often are, it was in a neighborhood. So it was in a residential area, and they kept getting calls and complaints about the trackout. They had a rock entrance on site. They were street sweeping 2 times a day, but it wasn't enough to keep it clean, and it wasn't enough to keep the neighborhood busybodies from calling them all the time. So it became such an issue that they brought some FODS on site. So they went from street sweeping 2 times a day to once a week, and they hadn't received any calls from people in the neighborhood since making that switch. So honestly, just from kind of a goodwill perspective, I think it can go a long way as well. So my second case study here is potentially in some of y'all's neck of the woods. It's in Illinois. It was a tollway project, the I-94 tollway. And basically there was a project there that involved upgrading the communications infrastructure. So they were adding fiber optic cabling along the highway. And because of this type of work, as you guys know, has to be done in multiple phases, they actually needed over 60 entrances throughout the project. The contractor there was called Old Veterans Construction. They decided to use FODS because the standard layout can be installed, relocated, and removed in about 20 minutes. Not to mention, they also avoided some dangerous liability of having rock right alongside that busy highway. You can see in these pictures, it would be not a good thing if we had some big chunks of gravel in the middle of the road with semis flying down the road. So essentially what they did on this project is they bought 40 FODS. They created 60 entrances with those mats in a 90-day time frame, and they really were able to save a lot of time and also money. And by the end of the project, the contractors told us they had essentially paid for the mats, so they now owned them, and that they were really going to be able to have an advantage bidding future projects because, this was already paid off, so they could use that to their advantage to bid more strategically. So I like this project because it's a lot different than the Harris County one, but it also highlights just an important advantage of the system is that it is so easy to pick up and move around your site. So if you ever have a project that's phased like this, or just requires the construction entrance to change throughout the project or to be moved, it's a great option. You can avoid, having to do some excavation, bringing in gravel, removing the gravel, all that kind of stuff, and just quickly pick up the mats and drive them over to the other part of the site. So those 2 case studies, like I said, quite a bit different, but do highlight that FODS can be used in a variety of projects and industries really with great success. And if y'all do have a specific industry or project type you'd like more information on, I will find you a case study, pictures, project examples, fun little story, something like that. Please just let me know. I want to make this, as custom and tailored to you guys and your specific project. So let me know, and I will be happy to find that info for you all. And FODS, really, they're not only just used in the construction space, we also find them on landfills, scrap metal, recycling, etc. Like I said, rock quarries. So really it's a lot of different uses for the system. So now I'm just going to give a quick overview, a basic overview of the installation and maintenance side of things. And like I said, this is just kind of a high level overview. We do have some really detailed information on our website, including a step-by-step video and guide for the installation process, but truly it is quite simple. And that's really one of the biggest advantages I think of the system is, you know what, you guys have enough to worry about with your actual project that you're trying to do. The last thing you need to be worrying about maintaining or keeping up with is the construction entrance. So I think FODS will definitely just make life a bit easier. So the mats arrive on site nested. You can see they're in this first picture. So they do ship and store very efficiently. And what you're going to do is you're going to place the mats at that exit point or the furthest point of egress. You flip the top mat over and you're going to leave space for placing our first piece of hardware, which you can see in this second photo. First piece of hardware is what we call an H bracket. Essentially, it's like a little mini I-beam. You're going to place it angled so that the opposite sides are slightly on the edge of the mats, forming this diagonal that you can see there in that second picture. I'm going to repeat that process, for however many mats you have, pull them together. And basically the point of the H bracket is naturally once a vehicle drives onto the front of the mat, the other side wants to lift up a little bit and it just keeps that from happening. So once the H brackets are in place, you're going to connect them together using our second piece of hardware, which we call a long strap. And you place one long strap under the side edge, another on top, align the holes, push these bolts up through the mats and straps and tighten the nuts. Now, after the H brackets and long straps are in place, the mats have essentially become one unit in whatever design that you've decided to use as the contractor or that the engineer has spec'd on the project. And the final step is to just anchor the mats in place so that they don't shift. The anchoring method does differ a bit depending on the substrate type. If they're going on top of, let's say rock, gravel, grass, something like that, we just recommend like an 18-inch form stake or nail stake with holes in it. And there's a washer and pin in the hardware kit that keeps those stakes from riding up. If they're going on top of concrete or asphalt, recommend either a concrete sleeve anchor or a concrete screw, which is kind of what we've been recommending recently, works really well too. So overall, very simple and easy. And yeah, please let me know if I can provide additional info on that install process. And like I said, check out our website. We've got some really detailed instructions on there as well. Naturally, the question that we get all the time as well is, how do you clean the mats? When do you clean the mats? First of all, we do recommend cleaning them once about 2.5 inches of sediment have built up in the base of the mat. And that is something that I really like about the system as well, is there's a really quantifiable number of like, this is when they should be cleaned. So that's helpful for inspectors and cities and stuff too. They can get out there, they can literally bring a little tape measure and say, hey, these need to be cleaned now. Versus with a stone entrance, it's kind of like, well, looks like so trackout's entering the road, blah, blah, blah. There's not really any quantifiable method of determining when the system needs to be cleaned off. So as far as the cleaning methods go, this is by no means an exhaustive list. Found that contractors are super innovative and come up with great solutions on your own, but some of the most common methods we have seen are just a piece of equipment like a skid steer with a broom attachment. You could just brush from side to side, push the dirt off the mats within just a matter of minutes. There's also a manual shovel too. You can see this funny looking skinny little shovel right here. Someone can stand in the middle of the mat on the logo and just push the dirt down through the lanes of travel and have a mat cleaned off in a couple minutes as well. Because the type of plastic that FODS are made out of, it's kind of similar to a sewer pipe. So the dirt doesn't stick to the pyramids. It doesn't really clog up the mats. You just quickly can push it down through the lanes of travel. You're not digging it out. You're not chipping it out. Of course, you can use a water truck too, as long as the water is contained. Sometimes people incorporate like a drivable waddle, and I know ASP has all kinds of solutions like that in stock. And then also like a street sweeper, as long as that head is adjustable, etc. Like I said, lots of other methods we've seen used, but these are just some of the more common. So that's installation and maintenance. Like I said, pretty simple. I'm going to kind of go into the costs here for a little bit. And, when we do talk about cost, FODS are like any piece of equipment. They're going to cost you some money upfront, but make you money in the long run. It's definitely different just looking at your construction entrance as an asset, but it really does make sense once you think about it. Now, of course, the exact ROI and break-even point is going to differ really greatly depending on a variety of factors: geography, project type, weather conditions, the strictness of compliance in your area, etc. But we have developed and gotten feedback on just some general guidelines for when that break-even point is typically found. And of course, contact your local ASP for a quote. Any numbers I give you guys here are just ballpark numbers that they can get you an exact custom quote for your project. So a mat costs approximately $2,600 each. As we discussed, about 4 to 6 mats are most commonly used per entrance. So we're talking like 10, 15,000 for a set of FODS. Conservatively speaking, most contractors will find their break-even point no later than a year and a half. And that's pretty conservative based on what we have received and heard feedback on. And they'll also find that break-even point faster if they're moving the mats a lot, so probably within the first time that they move the mats to a new location. So if it's a phase project like that tollway, they're going to find cost savings, or you guys are going to find cost savings really quickly. And this is not even taking into consideration the fact that FODS can eliminate the need for remediation. They can really reduce costly EPA fines, SWIP violations, etc. And I'm sure if there's any of the Colorado people on here, I know that Bowman has heard a lot about this, and we have as well. You know, contractors will call us up and they'll say, the inspector told me I needed to get some FODS on site. I'm about to be fined like $1 gazillion for Trackout. I'm like, great, you know, but and they'll ask us, they'll say, you know, what's happening? Are you guys bribing these people or what? I'm like, I swear we're not bribing any officials. You know, this is all above board. They just work really well. And when I'm talking about the cost savings too, I do like to mention that FODS can also be used as like a wash rack or in place of a rumble grate too. So if you ever have projects that require that, you can kind of reuse them in that capacity as well, which can offer some cost savings. So I think it was Adam had received some feedback from Missouri contractors saying a construction entrance costs them about $5,000. So that's on the lower end of what we typically hear. But even in that regard, that means after using FODS on 2 projects, they're in the clear, and they still have 10 plus years of life left in the system. So if you have a 50-foot spec, we'd recommend probably 4 or 5 mats for that particular entrance. That's kind of where I got these numbers, and here's a quick breakdown on it as well. So even in the more conservative instances, cost-wise, we say within about a year and a half or the second use of the mats, you'll probably be finding that break-even point. And then of course, anything from there, you can be used as an advantage for bidding more aggressively, or, you know, having, however you guys want to work that out within your company, but certainly can provide a lot of cost savings over time and a lot of advantage there because of the durability and reusability of the system. So that starts to bring me towards the end of my presentation here. Here are a couple of examples of different CAD drawings for layouts that we typically see. As I mentioned, we have all of these up on our website, and I'm happy to provide those too in an email. If you would like, just let me know. These are some of our more common ones. And I do want to highlight really quickly the T-shape. So this is a really popular option when, you know, vehicles need to make a wide turnout when they're exiting the site, so that, you know, all the tires can stay on the mats when they're leaving, but you don't have to necessarily buy 2 lanes of travel, because, you know, we're worried about tracking out, not tracking in. So this can be a cost-effective option there as well. Sometimes, you know, 2 lanes of travel are preferred. So here's an example of this over here on the right-hand corner, but truly you definitely can find an exact layout that best meets your specific site. And we're always happy to recommend on that as well. We have at this point 14,000 plus mats out right now in the field being used. So we've seen them on lots of different types of projects, and we're always happy to recommend on a layout that we think would work really well for you all too, or work with your local rep that you guys work with at ASP or whatever branch you work with, and develop a solution that is tailored to your site. You know, we're also seeing on the specifier side of things, a lot of FODS specifications come through recently. Here are just a couple examples of some I pulled from Construct Connect. It's just a project tracking software. So we're excited to see that as well. And if you're a specifier, I do have a lot of resources, CAD drawings in different formats, you know, specs, all kinds of stuff like that. So please let us know if we can assist on that side of things as well. But truly, you know, from that initial design phase to the final implementation, we want to do whatever we can to assist you guys, whether that be, you know, recommend on a layout, CAD drawings, engineer side, or finally, you know, help with in the field technical support when it does come time to install your entrance. We're here to help, and we have a lot of resources on our website. We're always available by phone or email, and then also can work with your local reps as well, just to make sure that you have all the information that you need, and just however we can help just to get FODS out on your site. We know you'll be super happy with them once you give them a try. So just want to come alongside and help in whatever way we can there. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Hope you'll try to incorporate FODS into one of your future projects and find that they do really make a lot of sense and are very efficient and effective. And yeah, thank you guys so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate you all logging on, and thanks to Bill for facilitating, and love to answer any questions. It seems like, yeah, we've got some time here for questions. Feel free to jot down my contact info and shoot me an email if you've got any questions or anything that I can help with that I mentioned throughout the presentation, whether that be finding specific project examples, CAD drawings, install guide, anything like that. Feel free to shoot me a message or give me a call.
Chloe, great job. This is Bill, of course, and I see that I have some coworkers who got on here as attendees. I've asked if they wanted to speak, and no one has definitely said that they had anything to add, but I'm going to go ahead and promote them to panelists as well. So Ed Nelson, you're going to be promoted to a panelist. Really great job, Chloe. I'm going to actually put your slide back up there. So let me take over control from you and put your last slide back up there before I get to mine. And then the other person I'm going to promote to panelist so that he can speak if he wants is Mark Sterneman, and Adam Lidekin is with him. So all three of those gentlemen work out of ASP Enterprises in the St. Louis area. And you had mentioned that Adam gave you an example that he hears about $5,000 each for a construction entrance. And to your point, if it's typically around $10,000 for a construction entrance with FODS, after 2 projects, it's really, they've broken even. And it's a good investment going forward because they can continue to use it for years.
Yes.
So you mentioned on the clean out, and I think that was a really great example, is that with rock, it's just a judgment call, right? And really, it kind of goes back to how much mud is getting on the street. And it's almost like they being either the city or the contractor, kind of waits until it becomes a problem. And either they're having to clean it twice a day, or like you say, a busybody neighbor is complaining because they're driving their clean car and kicking up mud and rocks. You mentioned, I think you said 2.5 inches. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep. And we have developed some guidelines for inspectors and stuff that in cities that were approved. So if anyone would like that, I'm happy to provide it. I don't know if we have any people on that side of things on this call or not, but
yeah, and we'll see. So when we do that Survey Monkey, that'll be a good opportunity, because a lot of times people, I don't know if you've ever done this, Chloe, I think of my best stuff when I'm no longer talking to the person.
Yes.
In a bad way, it could be an argument. Like if you're disagreeing with somebody, say a family member at a holiday, then you walk away and say, oh, you know what I should have said? That would have been a zinger.
Or we wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, man,
yes,
that was a perfect retort.
That would have been an awesome burn. Well, in a good way, then it happens with the Survey Monkey too. I see that some people ask us questions later. And one question that Donald asked is if FODS can be rented. And the answer is yes, for people who like to rent things out. And if they get to know us, they'll know that we are very good, I said at the beginning, at delivering products on a truck. We can deliver a whole lot of solutions on one truck and get them there at the right time. What we don't do a lot of is rentals. And some of our competitors do. So, and some of our competitors like to rent things out and they make a lot of money at it, and it's good business for them. We don't necessarily have the people power to do a lot of the rentals. So for right now, we are focused primarily on sales, because we also see greater benefit for the contractors in our markets to keep those FODS on hand and use them over and over again.
To be honest, there's really rarely a case where it makes financial sense to rent them. And since they do store very efficiently, they're not going to take up a lot of room in your yard. You can stack whatever you want on top of them. And if you do a couple construction entrances every few years, you're going to make money on them.
Yeah. And you know, my dad, God bless him, he was a pipe layer, but he used to rent stuff all the time. He'd rent a TV, he'd rent a couch. I'd say, what are you doing? He goes, oh man, I get great stuff. I said, how much did you pay? Oh, I don't remember. And I'd finally take the numbers from him. I did this as a little kid. He'd be, I don't want to promote a place like Rent-A-Center or whatever. And I'd say, Dad, you paid for that thing like 4 months ago. If you'd have bought it. Oh no, I can't afford to buy one. Okay, you just walk away, throw your hands in the air. I mean, at some point you say, that's fine if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But with the rock, the rock is a purchase only. I don't think you rent rock, and I don't think you get to reuse it very easily. So spent my life in the construction industry, and I know there's only certain sites that want a whole bunch of convoluted mess with mud and rock and debris and who knows what else. So there's certain places you can properly dispose of it. But if you're in an urban setting and you have to clean out an entrance, construction entrance, you're hauling that away again somewhere.
Exactly.
That needs to be factored into that cost. That people don't really factor that in when they give you a ballpark of $5,000 for a construction entrance. They're not being honest about the burden of hauling that away and where do they put it.
Yep. And another thing too, this is not really related to cost, but I wanted to mention this before, is the bright yellow mats are kind of helpful as well, because it really marks your construction entrance, and it's just a clear, entrance, because there's a lot of piles of dirt and rock all over a busy site. This is just a clearly marked, this is where you come in, this is where you go out. And it's a good first impression too. I think it just really shows that the contractor's putting a lot of effort into their site and maintaining that compliance and really trying to, go above and beyond.
That's hugely important. And I know that that as a relationship manager in business development, but even in our industry, perception becomes reality.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some solutions that are awesome, but if they don't look like what someone expected, they may not appreciate how awesome they are. And I'm thinking of erosion control solutions. We have some really good erosion control solutions, but over the years, people have had to come up with some, maybe they're adding green coloring to something just to try to please people. But with that construction entrance, that's the first impression, and often the only impression the neighbors and the community have with a project.
Yes.
That's huge. So I'm going to go ahead and advance slides just a little bit here. Ed and Mark and Adam, you guys are on as panelists. If you want to unmute yourselves and chime in, you have time. We actually have 12 minutes left that we could use. But I just wanted to remind people that these aren't our 800 numbers, but these are the websites. Pretty easy to get a hold of us. And we do have, well, that's an old one. I didn't update that. Yeah, well, we're already at FODS. So I do have other webinars coming, and that was my failure to not get the current slide up, that we have other webinars coming up in the coming weeks. So if folks answer that Survey Monkey and we send out the PDH certificate, don't give up on us. We're coming back next week for erosion control solution. And then we have a stormwater quality system on the 14th. And then we have a couple others coming on the 21st and 28th. So we will fill out April at least. We're not sure how long we're going to continue. Chloe, can I back up to one of your projects here?
Yeah, certainly.
I'm going to go back to one of your case studies, which I absolutely love. And it's a friend of ours. So sometimes when you show other people's projects, you kind of wonder, oh, are these guys friends? I want to be careful not to offend them. Well, John Moss is a good friend. And I see on that Harris County project, we do a lot of work with construction eco services. And I see the air control tower here, it looks like, in the background.
Yeah, that's actually at Chicago O'Hare. That's another study that we have.
That's why I wondered. Okay, so I saw that picture, but then down below I saw that Harris County. On this technical memorandum, I know that the text is really small, and I'm sure that our guests can't read it, but you said that it's available. There are a lot of communities, I'm just saying this for the benefit of our friends in our markets, there are a lot of communities that follow Texas. They follow TxDOT, and they follow Harris County Flood Control District. And we actually see the benefit of a lot of projects that go through there. People didn't used to think of Houston as a wet area, right? When I was a kid, it was just this big, flat, brown, dry place. But over the past several years, they have had tremendous rainfall problems and hurricanes, and they've had a lot of flooding. So they've really stepped up their efforts in water control, water quality, and stormwater management. So for them to say that this Challenger site is a great place where they saw the effectiveness of FODS, I think that speaks volumes for our communities as well. And that's a story we have to tell. So, in the Midwest, we have rock quarries. Every county has a rock quarry, so we can get rock and it's affordable. But we have to get beyond what's affordable that very first day you put it down. We have to look at what's effective. That's more important. That's a public safety issue and a water quality issue. And I'm looking at this picture, and this is exactly what you described, with the bright yellow mats being the obvious entrance.
Right, because there's a lot of muddy rock all over the place. Like, where do we come on?
Yeah, and everything's flat in Houston. So there could be, this picture shows about 40 feet. There could be hundreds of feet where it looks like you could just pull in and out of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So you're exactly right. If they were trying to clean that or maintain it, they would just have a real mess out on the public street. So I think that's an excellent case study. And when you talked about 20,354 trucks passing this,
Yeah,
that would have been a whole lot of cleanup to do out on the street and a whole lot of maintenance to bring in a lot more than just 9 truckloads.
certainly. Yeah.
To repair and refresh that. Okay, well,
Hey,
Ed
Bill.
Nelson unmuted himself. It looks like Ed wants to participate. Good morning, Ed.
Hey,
Good
Ed.
morning. Hi, Chloe. Hey, I was just, I just wanted to jump in for a minute and say thanks, Chloe, for this. One of the things that we've noticed here recently, obviously, is across the construction industry, not just in our products that we deal with, but others, is the costs of geotextiles are shooting through the roof.
Mhm.
Seems like every week we're sending out letters about more price increases. So that obviously comes into play on these construction entrances. And I'm working with a few contractors on different jobs with that, where not only are they putting geotextiles in, but high priced geotextiles in for construction entrance as well. So that's adding to it. And obviously, like Adam and Mark had sent you the information, Chloe, on the construction entrances, aggregate is cheap in our area here in Missouri, and in my part of Illinois, in a lot of areas it's cheap, and in other prices, depending on how far the quarry is away, it can get very expensive. So I think the timing is perfect for this. I've had a lot of interest from contractors in doing it, and this is a good avenue to get out and to explain it and give the layout and give a cost comparison. And I appreciate you doing that. The other part that I just wanted to mention, what you talked about, was various entrances, and the question had come up about the rental. We have been in the rental business, sort of, as Bill mentioned. We typically don't like to do that, but we have been with the rumble grates in the past.
Okay.
And so we've rented a few of those, and we've had sites where we do that, where we have multiple entrances, and then obviously that gets to be a problem. So the ease of movement of the FODS to various entrances obviously comes into play. And I think with some of the contractors that are on today, one of the biggest issues we ran into, as I mentioned, was the aggregate cost that we find in our area, and being able to lay it out and do an ROI on it, I think was very valuable to it. So I know Chloe and I had worked together on a project before, and asked her to come on and speak today. I think you did a great job, and I appreciate all you guys' help.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you guys too, certainly. And I know Ed had gotten some mats right at, there was a soccer, or not soccer stadium, baseball stadium in St. Louis. Is that correct?
It's actually the new Major League Soccer stadium.
Soccer. Okay. I can't remember. It was soccer, or baseball, but yeah.
Well, thank you, Ed, for participating there. That was awesome. And yeah, Chloe, and I don't ever intend to accuse any of our clients or contractors of lying, or Adam. So I believe that people really do assign a value, say $5,000 to a construction entrance. And where my house is here in Iowa right now, and we have a very affordable aggregate. And I would say that they would be right in line with what Adam said. But what I don't think people assign is an actual value to the hassle of sending somebody out there on a regular basis to clean the street, and the hassle of tearing these things out, especially in a developed area. If they're trying to build a new doctor's office within a nice suburb, or if they're trying to do a retrofit or new construction on a downtown building, it's a real burden to have to haul that stuff away.
It is, or to assign a valuable piece of equipment for a couple hours to come regrade it out or anything like that. Those are just some of the hidden costs for sure.
And one thing that we're seeing with some communities is the reality of the risk of putting someone in a skid loader out on the street. They're really trying to reduce how much traffic and how much construction activity happens on the public right away, because so many people are distracted by looking at their phones. They're not paying attention.
That's a good point.
And the last thing they need is somebody going real fast on a skid steer with either a broom or a bucket on it, trying to clean the street. And as they back around, they back into a minivan that's hauling kids, and it's a real safety issue, for one.
It is.
The other one, I had a great talk with somebody at the city of Colorado Springs a couple of years ago, and it was about a green infrastructure and how much they're doing to try to improve their water quality. And they have some things that we're helping them on. But one thing that they said was, when they budgeted a capital improvement project, like a street project, they never realized how much they were impacting the surrounding neighborhoods. They had haul routes for their dump trucks, whether they be hauling out material they were grubbing out or bringing in aggregate or bringing in supplies. The haul routes to get to a downtown area or any place in the city, they ended up destroying some residential streets, and they had some citizens who were upset about it. So immediately the city had to identify new capital improvement projects to fix the side streets that they had destroyed by building this other construction project. And the more they're hauling rock or the more they're hauling out mud, that's just more truck traffic on those other streets that are going to continue to be worn out. It's something that it's hard to put a value on when you talk a life cycle cost, but it's a
Sure.
real cost.
It is. Yeah, certainly.
All right. Well, I think we've done a great job. You especially, you've done an awesome job, Chloe. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful for you. We'll stay in touch with writing. We'll share all the contact information
Great.
for our attendees with you. This is recorded, so we will put this out on our YouTube page. It'll be available for people if you want to share it with someone in your office, or if you got interrupted with a phone call, couldn't continue. So please feel free to contact us if you want Chloe or one of us to have a meeting with you, where rather than do a webinar with everyone being muted, we could do an open mic meeting and talk about your project. So Chloe,
Awesome.
take care.
Well,
Thanks
thank you,
a lot.
Bill. Thanks for everything. And thanks to everyone that joined today. Super appreciate it.
You bet. Well, we'll stay in touch. Thanks and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Bye.